The University Archives was founded in 1965, and so my predecessors at that time were going out and locating materials on campus that had historical value. So we have historic photos, for instance, predating our founding in 1870 of some of the college founders, some of our early students or who would become students. Well, some of those historic photographs go back to that time. We also have historic documents of our founders going back to the 1860s, 1870s. I wanted to show a early letter from the University Archives from our founder, John R. Buchtel. This letter is to Lucinda W. Auntie Brown. This letter of August 1878. He's writing to her to try to entice her to come to the young Buchtel College then to open up a boarding house for students. I think it's very important that we preserve our history here at the University of Akron and the history of our community, which is what our department does. It's University Archives and Special Collections, which are our regional history collections. So we document the history of the university going back to our founding in 1870. So here in our reading room, we have some materials relating to college founder John R. Buchtel, including a portrait of his walking stick, his inkwell that resided on, this is his original desk that was used here on the campus in Old Buchtel Hall. Over here we have some of our earliest university student publications, our yearbook. Before it was the Tell book, it was the Argo. It was our first yearbook in 1880. This one from 1921 shows our first African-American graduate, Emmer Martin Lancaster, who went on to study law in Cleveland and then went on to work for the government in Washington, D.C. So he graduated in 1921. He was quite an athlete as well. He was on the track team and I believe the baseball team. He was known for his whistling on campus and his outgoing personality, and from what I hear was just an amazing guy, a great student, an amazing athlete, and then as I mentioned, went on to study law. He came back to Akron after his career in Washington and was president of the local chapter of the NAACP, but he worked under Franklin Delano Roosevelt in D.C. Well, as the old saying goes, if we don't remember our history, we're condemned to repeat it, right? So it's important, I think for me, for our students, our faculty, people in our community to understand our history, where we've come from, where we are now, and then that helps us understand where we're going in the future. I've been in this profession for 25 years and it never gets old. I'm still excited every time I open a box of material that comes in or from out in the field reviewing collections. It's amazing what we have here in our collection and what's still out there that people have saved in their attics and basements. So this is the one and only Zippy costume that we have in the archives. We'd love to have others if people have them out there somewhere. That'd be another thing that would be great to have in the archives. We believe it's from the 1980s. I just love working with history, as I mentioned, getting to work with some of these primary resources and just opening up boxes some days and just seeing what is in there. And it's sometimes you're surprised, and there's some really interesting, cool items. One of my favorite Buchtelite newspaper articles I like to point out is here in 1894. It says Buchtel College versus OSU, the latter defeated by a score of 12-6. So it was the first and only time that we beat the Ohio State University, and we actually have historic photographs of that game in the collection, which is quite amazing, I believe. Archivists are hired because of our knowledge of history and archiving and historical documentation, primary resources, to review those records and winnow it down to decide what has archival value for the present and, more importantly, the future, so those materials are preserved for the next generation. There's a lot of value in history, again, celebrating our heritage, where we've come from, who we are as a people, again, recognizing where we are, and then maybe where we need to go in the future, right? And how we can sometimes do things a little better.